Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl News. My name is Brian, and Elon Musk absolutely destroys this know-nothing BBC reporter who thought that he was asking the real tough questions. Let's dive in.
Spoken to people very recently who were involved in moderation, and they just say there's not enough people to police this stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company. Is that
what hate
that
speech are you talking about? I mean, you use Twitter.
Right.
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
But just a personal anecdote, like what do you? I don't.
Personally, for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content, yeah, personally. But I'm not going to talk to the rest of for the rest of Twitter.
So you see more hate speech personally?
I would say I would see more hateful content in that.
Content you don't like or hateful? What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah, I mean, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
No,
is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm
just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content. And I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
you
don't.
can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore. Because I just don't particularly like it.
But you
and
said
actually, a lot of people are quite similar. I only look at
hang on a second.
my
You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And
then how did you see the hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen for you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet, and yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false.
No, what I claimed...
You just lied.
What I claimed was there are many organizations that say that kind of information is on the rise. Now, whether it has on my feed or not... I mean, right, and
literally
if you look at something
one.
like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK, they will say that. So
look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example, and you can't name one.
Right, and as I've already said, I don't use that feed. But
then how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
that's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would you know there's hateful content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on. We only have a certain amount of time. COVID misinformation. You changed the COVID misinformation.
Has
rules.
BBC changed its COVID misinformation?
The BBC does not set the rules on Twitter, so I'm asking you.
No, I'm talking about the BBC's misinformation about COVID.
I'm literally asking you about, you changed the labels, the COVID misinformation labels. There used to be a policy, it then disappeared. Why do that?
Well, COVID is no longer an issue. Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations, and not reporting on that at all? And what about the fact that the BBC was put under pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy? Are you aware of that?
This is not an interview about the BBC.
Oh, you thought it wasn't?
I see now why you've done Twitter Spaces. I am not a representative of the BBC's editorial policy. I want to make that clear. Let's talk about something else. If you want to talk about the BBC, all right. Let's talk about something else.
If deer in headlights had a look, it'd be this dude right here. This reporter, bless his heart, I don't know how he got this job. I don't know whose nephew this dude is, whose brother-in-law this is. This dude does not understand the basics of journalism, because if he did, he would then understand that if he actually bothered to use Twitter, all of a sudden having a whole bunch of accounts return from their shadow bans and their actual bans, guess what? You're going to see more of them in your For You feed, because Guess what? When you've allowed more people into the pool, the water rises. Okay? This should be a very easy concept. And then this reporter should have already known the answer to some of the questions that you ask. That's part of being a reporter. That's sort of the same railroad track as being a lawyer. You know the questions that you're asking your clients and your witnesses. You already know them. And the whole point is to set them up in a way so your narrative is going to make more sense. This is a big reason why we don't like journalists. It's a big reason why we don't like lawyers, because ultimately you're forcing a narrative that may or may not be actually true. And this dude, however, doesn't even know what the truth is. And he thinks that Elon Musk is going to play along and answer the questions the way this reporter thinks it's going to go down. And instead, Elon Musk, who has been playing this game for a while now, is answering the questions in a way that reminds this poor reporter that, one, he's out of his league. That's obvious. We've already talked about this. Two, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he shows that constantly and basically admits to not really ever using Twitter. And then finally, if he doesn't know what Twitter is doing, if he doesn't know what the changes have been, why is he asking these questions like he already knows the answer? This dude thought he was going to have a cakewalk of an interview, that Elon was going to be really nice and he was going to give him the easy softball answers that was going to make this dude's career. Instead, I'm not sure this dude has a career at all anymore and is definitely reconsidering his life choices. Because there is a timeline where Elon Musk started off as a joke looking into buying Twitter because Twitter had become so captured, so boring that it was pretty much a giant echo chamber. And so people were egging on Elon Musk to, hey, why don't you buy Twitter and let's see what happens? And so he does. And what he wants is one particular thing. He wants access to information so he can make more artificial intelligence apparatus, and he wants that extra information from Twitter. However, what he found was something far, far more devious, far worse when it comes to actual democracy. See, Twitter, I think, is the best platform for getting your opinions out there. And while I prefer YouTube for longer form content, that's why I'm doing this here, Twitter is the place where you get those first takes out there, where you get those news headlines out there, because it's tailored to that actual style of frontline reporting. And so that's where the first information starts really bubbling up. And so the left has long loved their control of this platform. Well, Elon Musk comes along, fires 90% of the workers, buys it, and makes it into a more profitable machine, ultimately proving that this dude has a track record of firing useless employees and getting better results. Funny, it's almost as if there's parallels between Elon Musk then and Elon Musk now. But the perhaps even more important thing that was discovered wasn't the fact that he needed to fire a whole bunch of useless people. It wasn't the fact that he would now have access to better artificial intelligence technologies. It was the fact that he found with other journalists like Matt Taibbi that, lo and behold, the federal government had been backing attempts to strong-arm Twitter, Facebook, all of Meta, as a matter of fact, with Mark Zuckerberg, and they had been trying to have their tendrils control Silicon Valley. Well, guess what? A couple of years later, the Silicon Valley that had been controlled by the CIA, that was strong-armed by the Biden administration, saying, hey, you really shouldn't post that story. Because the CIA and the FBI suppressed stories about the Hunter Biden laptop, all at the behest of Joe Biden, and then they continued those policies during the Biden administration. If you ever want to ask yourself how much power the deep state has, Donald Trump was president, but they still went over his head in an attempt to depose him. Okay? This is the issue you have with the people that say that they're trying to protect democracy, when the reality is they're out there clutching their pearls saying, oh, there's more hateful content. Well, ma'am, that's what happens when free speech occurs. You're going to hear opinions you don't like. And currently, and even though this isn't America, this is, after all, a BBC reporter, there's something happening in the UK. They're starting to realize they have a bit of an immigration problem themselves, and people are no longer afraid to speak out on these problems. This is becoming a growing movement, and you could tell that the leadership over there is, they're stirring. They don't know how to handle this. They have tried to put draconian Orwellian laws. Remember, George Orwell was British. He would be rolling in his grave seeing the kind of laws that they have about free speech across the pond. And so, when it comes to free speech, when it comes to democracy, it is better to have the content that you deem mean, even beyond the pale at times. But that is the price for the idea of freedom of speech. Liberals used to fight for this, but they don't anymore. And thankfully, Elon Musk is out here pointing out all these major problems, and he has also now taken that same ideology and moved it into the Department of Government Efficiency, and you can tell that things have changed dramatically in these past couple of years since he's bought Twitter. This is better for public discourse, and it is better for democracy. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl News. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.